Story 1. The man at the corner expanded when I was 9 years old. I thought I understood what safety felt like. Safety was walking home from a friend's house with nothing more than the crunch of leaves under my sneakers. Safety was knowing every house in the block, every neighbor's name, every shortcut through backyards that we used when we played tag. My parents used to say we lived in the kind of neighborhood where nothing bad ever really happened. But sometimes it only takes one moment, one person to change that forever. It was late fall, just after Halloween. Air carried that sharp, smoky smell that comes from fireplaces being lit, and the sky was already dim by the time I left Jacob's house. Jacob lived just 3 doors down, so it wasn't exactly a long trip home. My mom had told me more than once not to stay after dark, but Jacob had just gotten a new video game, and 9-year-olds don't really think about time the way adults do. One minute we were playing, the next the sun had slipped behind the horizon. I remember standing at his front step, telling him goodbye, and immediately feeling a sense of unease. The streetlights had just clicked on, buzzing faintly, casting orange-yellow pools of light on the sidewalk. The rest of the neighborhood was cloaked in that purplish shadow you get just before full dark. I shoved my hands in my jacket pockets and started walking. The thing about being a kid is that you don't really expect to feel afraid. Nervous sometimes, sure, when you're real alone in a dark basement or watching a scary movie. You weren't, suppose, but true fear. That doesn't really enter your mind until it happens to you. And for me, it happened the moment I noticed a man. He was standing at the far corner of the block, right by the stop sign. At first, I thought he was just waiting for something, maybe a ride, maybe a neighbor. But the longer I looked, the stranger it seemed. He wasn't pacing, he wasn't on a phone, he wasn't smoking. He was just still, perfectly still. I kept walking, my sneakers crunching the leaves scattered across the sidewalk, trying not to look at him. But every few steps, I couldn't help it. My eyes drifted back toward him, and each time, he was in the exact same position. His clothes looked strange too. He wore this oversized jacket, so big it hung almost to his knees, sleeves bunched awkwardly at his wrists. His jeans were faded and too loose, like they'd been worn for years. Even from a distance, there was something off about the way he stood stiff, shoulders slightly hunched, like someone trying to make themselves look smaller. I told myself I was imagining things. Maybe he lived in one of the nearby houses. Maybe he was just standing there because he liked the night air. But then, without warning, he moved. Not much, just a tilt of his head. Slow, deliberate. The kind of tilt that isn't casual at all, but calculated, like he was studying me. My chest tightened. My pace quickened just a little. That's when I heard it. Crunch. The unmistakable sound of a shoe on dry leaves. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew he was following me. I tried to keep calm, telling myself not to run. Not yet. I thought maybe if I acted like I didn't notice, he'd stop. But the steps kept coming, slow but steady, matching mine. Every time I sped up just a little, his footsteps quickened too, always keeping the same distance. I wanted so badly to look back, but I was afraid of what I'd see. Finally, I couldn't resist. I turned my head, just a glance over my shoulder. What I saw is burned into my memory forever. He was closer now, maybe 20 feet behind me. His face, dimly lit by the street lamp, was pale, almost sickly. His eyes were wide open, unblinking, locked directly on me, and his mouth was stretched into this crooked half smile. It wasn't friendly, wasn't even human in the way it felt. It was like he was enjoying my fear. My heart leapt into my throat. My legs finally obeyed what my brain had been screaming. I ran. I bolted down the sidewalk, my arms pumping, breath tearing from my lungs. I didn't care about looking calm anymore. I didn't care if I tripped. I just wanted to get home. Behind me, the footsteps changed. They weren't slow anymore. They were heavy, pounding, matching my frantic pace. He was chasing me. 3 houses. That's all I had to cover. 3 houses until safety. But in that moment, it felt like an endless stretch. My lungs burned, my vision blurred with tears, but I kept screaming, "Mom, Mom." I tore into our driveway, nearly tripping as I sprinted up the porch steps. My voice cracked, my throat raw as I screamed again. That's when it happened. The porch light clicked on. For the first time, I turned fully to look at him. Just like that, he stopped, frozen in the middle of the sidewalk, his chest heaving, that same twisted smile still plastered on his face. He didn't say a word. He didn't move an inch, just stood there, staring at me as if the light itself had pinned him in place. The front door slammed open. Mom rushed out, panic on her face. She shouted my name. And in that instant, the man turned. He didn't run. He didn't even hurry. He simply walked back toward the corner, turned, and vanished into the darkness. The police came that night. They searched the neighborhood, asked questions, and drove around with their spotlight on. They found nothing. Their best guess was that he was some drifter, maybe homeless, maybe drunk. But even as a 9-year-old, I knew better. I hadn't seen a man who was lost. I hadn't seen someone confused or harmless. I had seen a predator. For weeks after, I couldn't sleep in the dark. I made my mom keep the hallway light on, just in case. Every little sound outside whined against the windows. Branches scratching the siding made my heart jump. And sometimes, even now, when I walk home at night as an adult, I catch myself glancing at the corners of the street, looking for a man who tilts his head, a man who smiles without blinking. Because the thought that still chills me to my core is this: what if my mom hadn't turned on that porch light at the exact right second? Story 2. The van by the playground when I was 8 years old. The playground at our elementary school was more than just a place to swing or slide. It was our kingdom. The old wooden play structure with its creaky swings and the metal slide that burned your legs in the summer heat was the backdrop for every recess, every after-school hangout. On weekends, kids from the whole neighborhood would gather there. Parents felt comfortable letting us run wild because everyone knew each other. This was one of those small suburban areas where the idea of danger felt distant, something that happened in movies or in other towns, not ours. Okay, but that illusion was broken one chilly Saturday afternoon. I remember that day vividly. The sky was gray, with clouds hanging low, and the air had that bite of early spring. I was with 2 of my friends, Anna and Chris. We had our bikes with us, and after racing them up and down the street, we ditched them near the monkey bars and started playing tag, while I was crouched behind the slide, waiting to ambush Chris, that I first noticed it. The van. It was parked just past the chain-link fence on the side of the road that bordered the playground. A faded white panel van, the kind with no windows in the back. Rust ate away at the edges near the wheel wells, and one of the hubcaps was missing. At first, I didn't think much of it. There's plenty of cars parked along that street. But when I peeked again, I noticed something strange. The van wasn't parked near any houses. It was positioned in a spot that faced directly toward the playground, like it had been placed there deliberately. And then I saw the figure in the driver's seat. He wasn't doing anything, just sitting there, hands resting on the steering wheel. A baseball cap shaded most of his face, but I could see enough pale skin, a thick beard, and sunglasses, despite the fact that the sun wasn't out. It was his stillness that unsettled me. Adults parked near the playground usually did something, checked their phones, got out to stretch, waved at their kids. This man wasn't moving. He was just staring. I remember whispering to Anna and Chris about it. First, they laughed it off, calling me paranoid. But then Chris looked for himself, and I'll never forget the way his smile dropped. "Yeah," he muttered. "That's weird." We tried to keep playing, pretending everything was normal, but our laughter was forced. Every time we moved across the playground, the van seemed to loom in the corner of my vision. After about 10 minutes, the engine coughed to life. My stomach dropped. The van slowly pulled forward, rolling along the street, but instead of driving away, it stopped right at the break in the fence where kids often came and went. The driver's side window rolled down. A voice called out, deep, rough. "Hey kids." The three of us froze. "Come here a second." Even as a child, something primal in me screamed, "No." Every bone in my body knew we shouldn't go near that van. Kanna, always the polite one, started to step forward. Key grabbed her wrist, shaking my head hard. The man leaned out the window a little. Sunglasses hid his eyes, but his smile was visible, a crooked grin that made my skin crawl. "I've got something for you," he said. "Candy. You like candy, right?" It sounds like a cliche, but I swear those were his exact words. The kind of thing adults warned us about, the kind of story teachers told during safety assemblies that we all rolled our eyes at. And here it was, happening to us in real life. Chris finally found his voice. "We're not supposed to talk to strangers," he called, though his voice shook. The man chuckled, low and raspy. "I'm not a stranger. I live around here. I know your parents." That was enough to break us. Anna yanked her arm back, and the three of us bolted, grabbing our bikes, pedaling as fast as our little legs would allow. My heart pounded as the wind tore at my face, every second expecting to hear the roar of the van's engine behind us. And I did. The sound of tires squealing on pavement echoed through the street. I risked a glance over my shoulder, and sure enough, the van was pulling out, following us. We didn't head toward our own homes. We were too scared he'd see where we lived. Instead, we swerved into the first driveway we saw, a bright yellow house with toys scattered across the yard. Without even knocking, we dropped our bikes and pounded on the front door. A woman opened it, startled by our frantic knocking. We all shouted over each other, trying to explain, voices shrill and panicked. Behind us, I caught a glimpse of the van cruising past slowly, the driver's face turning toward us as he passed. That smile again, cold, calculated. The woman pulled us inside, locked the door, and called the police. By the time an officer arrived, the van was long gone. They took our statements, called our parents and promised to patrol the area. 4 weeks afterward, parents in the neighborhood whispered about a suspicious van. Some said the police had questioned a man who fit the description, but nothing ever came of it. The van was never seen Agenor. If it was, no one admitted it, but the memory stayed with me, 'cause I'll never forget that feeling, that moment when I realized the stories adults tell you aren't just stories. They're warnings. And sometimes those warnings come true. Even now, as an adult, whenever I see a white panel van on the road, a chill runs down my spine. My hands tighten on the steering wheel, and for a split second, I'm 8 years old again, standing frozen at the edge of a playground while a stranger calls out from a van. And I still hear that voice, rough and deep, promising candy in exchange for something unspoken. Story 3. The knock at my window when I was 10 years old. I lived in a small, single-story house with my parents and my younger brother. The house wasn't fancy, but to me, it was home. Bright yellow curtains in the kitchen, the faint creak of the hallway floorboards, the smell of my mom's cooking always clinging to the air. My brother and I shared a bedroom at the front of the house. It wasn't big, just enough for 2 beds, a dresser, and the window that looked out onto the front yard. Being on the first floor meant we had easy access to fresh air in the summer, but it also meant anyone outside had easy access to us. Back then, I didn't think about that, at least not until one night changed everything. It was the middle of winter. I remembered the frost on the corners of the glass, the way it shimmered faintly when the moonlight hit it. My brother had fallen asleep before me, his small body curled up under the blankets, soft snores filling the room. I lay awake, staring up at the glow-in-the-dark stars we'd stuck to the ceiling months before. That's when I heard it. Tap, 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 tap. At first, I thought I imagined it may be the old heating system, maybe a tree branch in the wind. But the sound was too deliberate. 3 distinct knocks against the glass. My heart skipped. I lay completely still, straining my ears. A long pause. Then again. Tap, tap. The sound was coming from the window. Slowly, I turned my head. The curtains were closed, but the thin fabric didn't block everything. I could see the faint outline of a hand. Fingers pressed against the glass, sliding across slowly, almost thoughtfully. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. The hand stayed there for a few seconds, then disappeared. Akanya. I thought maybe, just maybe I had imagined it. But then, a man's voice, low and raspy, drifted through the glass. Hey, open up. Every inch of my body went cold. I pulled the blanket to my chin, trembling. I wanted to scream for my parents, but the fear was paralyzing. My brother stirred in his sleep, mumbling something, but didn't wake up. I reached over, shaking his shoulder. Wake up, I whispered, my voice shaky. Someone's at the window. But he only rolled over, mumbling, and drifted deeper into sleep. Then the voice came again, closer this time, almost hissing. I can see you in there. Open the window. Tears blurred my vision. My chest hurt from holding my breath. I didn't dare move. For a moment, there was silence. I prayed he had gone. But then I heard the faint creak of the window frame. He was trying to slide it open. That was the breaking point. A scream tore out of me, loud enough to wake my brother and echo through the whole house. My dad came running down the hall, his footsteps pounding the wood floor. His curtain snapped open, and my dad's face appeared, furious and terrified all at once. Through the glass, we caught a glimpse of him. A man in a dark hoodie, hunched close to the window, his face shadowed. For a split second, his features caught the moonlight's sunken cheeks, unkempt beard, eyes wide and frantic. And then, as if realizing he was caught, he bolted. By the time my dad flung the front door open, the man was already sprinting down the street, swallowed by darkness. The police came later, shining flashlights around the yard, leaving boot prints in the snow. They found nothing, no footprints clear enough to follow, no clues to who the man was. Their best guess was that he was some drifter passing through, maybe trying to rob the house. But I knew, deep down, that wasn't it. Robbers don't whisper to children to open the window. For weeks afterward, I refused to sleep in that room. I dragged my blanket to the couch in the living room, where no windows faced the street. Parents tried to reassure me, but nothing erased the memory of that voice, seeping through the glass like smoke. Even now, as an adult, I can't stand the sound of tapping on glass, a branch against a window, the rattle of hail. Even someone knocking politely all makes my stomach twist, 'cause all I can hear is that man's whisper. I can see you in there, and I can't help but wonder, how long had he been watching before he finally knocked? Those were 3 disturbing, true stranger encounter stories from childhood. Each one a reminder that sometimes the monsters we fear as kids aren't hiding under the bed. They're standing outside your window, smiling from the corner, or waiting in a van just beyond the playground. Which story scared you the most? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe for more true horror stories.